Hey, I'm Ben Fraser, and I want to welcome you back to the Young and Adulting podcast. This is our God Answers series, where we get real about the big questions that people are wrestling with, and we get to dig into God's truth that connects with our everyday lives. So today, we've got a very special guest, and I'm so excited for you to get to meet him. His name is Brandon Arrington, and he is going to share some of the struggles that he had and the questions that he wrestled with, and how God used those moments to draw him closer to faith and to God. So, Brandon, you are officially our first guest on our podcast. And so welcome to the Young and Adulting podcast.
Appreciate it, Ben.
What do you say? You want to jump right in?
Let's do it.
And go right with it?
Yeah.
All right. So, Brandon, first things first, before we get deeper into all this, I want our people to know who you are and what you do for a living. So, tell us a little about yourself.
All right. Well, we moved to Noonan about 10 years ago. When we moved, we had a 1-week-old daughter. She's now a third grader. And then we had a son that was about 4. He's in 7th grade. It was a whole new journey moving down here in 2016. We moved for an airline position down here. And our whole world kind of turned upside down for a little bit. Not in a bad way, just, big life change, leaving family behind. Still pursuing this. It was the same career, but it was just the next step up. And so it was a lot to leave family behind with 2 young kids, especially a 1-week-old. But we made it through that first few months, got planted at Crossroads, and we've never looked back. It's been great.
Wow, that's awesome. A little side story. I wanted to be an aerospace engineer when I was in college, and I figured out really quick that I was terrible in physics, and so that never came to fruition.
Well, thankfully for flying, we don't have to use the physics too much. I did have to take it, chemistry, calculus, all that stuff.
I got you.
For flying an airliner, we don't really use it a whole lot. You just really need to be a better communicator. That's the biggest one.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, regardless, there's ways that God uses your journey to bring us to where we're at right now. And I just want to ask you this. How did this path shape your interest in these conversations about faith and science?
Well, at Clemson, I did a degree that was kind of touched in a lot of sciences. It was biological sciences with an emphasis in forestry. And then I did a geology minor. So kind of all 3 different areas of science, whether it be environmental, medical, or other things. And I just, I was intrigued, and I had a lot of questions that couldn't get answered. And at times, even when those questions were asked, there would be an uncomfortable feeling from the professor if you challenged anything. And it didn't matter how loving you phrased the question, if it was something that, went against what they believed in, there was a tension there. And so that just... that continued to kind of eat at me, and then one question led to the next question, and then when you realized how many things were left unanswered without turning back to hardcore biblical truth that has been tested and repeated, I don't know, it opened my eyes to like the blinders I feel like I'd been wearing for a long time of just believing hook, line, and sinker. Whatever a teacher said, whatever a textbook said, I took that as truth, and it was far from it. Yeah.
I remember being in a sociology class, I believe, in college, and professors have been asking those questions, and my professor specifically was I believe, an atheist, and he just tried to ask questions to prove his cases, and at this point, thankfully, I had given my life to Christ, and God had been working in my life where I'm thankful for the time where I wasn't drawn to those questions where I wrestled in my faith that much, but there were questions regardless, and I believe there's some misconceptions to this, right? So what are some misconceptions that you think people have about the relationship between science and faith?
I think too often, too many people think that those two things are in disagreement. They're in conflict somehow. Louis Pasteur is kind of the father of immunology. discovered a lot of stuff related to bacteria and other just like huge scientific discoveries. And he said it best, that a little bit of science might pull you away from God, but a lot of science will bring you running back to him.
That's good.
And that's so true. You can watch a 3-minute YouTube video and all of a sudden you think you understand how something could have just randomly been created, but they don't get into how it violates the laws of biology, the laws of physics, chemistry, mathematics. And so I don't know, the deeper you go, you will see that everything goes back to an intelligent mind and an intelligence that we can't even fathom. I mean, to put it in perspective, like God's creation, a teaspoon of DNA, just a teaspoon, could hold every video, comment, post ever put on Facebook. One little teaspoon has the storage capacity. So just stuff like that, when you think about it, we don't have intelligence. Even with our artificial intelligence computers and all the advancements we've made, we still can't create a cell from scratch from the same like inorganic. So when I think about things like that and I take a step back and I'm like, as many cool discoveries as we've made, we've got an Apple Watch, we've sent man to the moon, we got satellites that give you Wi-Fi, but we can't make a cell.
And AI is taking over right now.
Yeah, and it's impressive, but it can't make a cell. And a cell, what's so neat about it, it can take care of itself and then it can replicate. It's like having a factory that makes more factories. And so when I start thinking about things, even at the smallest, cellular level, it's just kind of mind-blowing at God's amazing creation. And then when you see how everything works so well together, it kind of keeps me in a state of awe and want to learn more. So,
man, that's awesome. Why do you think, though, that some of these misconceptions stick around? Like I've seen, like these misconceptions have not gone away.
Yeah,
they've stuck around. If not, they've gotten more. Like we see more and more misconceptions come up in today's culture in our lives. Why do you think those stuck around?
I think one thing, it's hard to change consensus at times. There was a doctor in Europe that was making the connection that every time doctors would work on corpses, then they would go deliver babies. These mothers were dying; they were getting sick. He thought it had to be something to do with the bacteria, and he just asked for everybody to start washing their hands. Something so simple, but the fact that bacteria could be transferred from one thing that was unheard of. It went against the consensus. They drove this person to be insane. He eventually won a Nobel Prize after the fact. But like pushing back against the scientific consensus. We used to think that the world was flat, to push back against that. There's so many things. We used to think we were the center of the universe, that everything revolved around us. And sometimes it's hard to get things shifted in a direction. But I think in our current culture, I think one of the biggest reasons why it's hard to turn things around is so many things are pushing a false narrative. You've got almost so much of the media, entertainment, so many books push the same misconceptions. A lot of things that have been proven time and time again to be false, yet they're still in textbooks. There's a couple of great books. Darwin's Black Box is a great one, and it goes through some of these most common misconceptions that have been refuted and agreed upon, yet they're still in textbooks. And so they're still hitting these innocent minds at a young level. And so if you hear it in your Disney movie and you read it in your early textbook, and it just keeps being presented to you as truth, even though it's been proven wrong, it's pretty easy to warp minds if they've been taught that from the beginning. And then I'd say one other little thing I'd like to add is just terminology. Yeah. The word evolution, like I believe in evolution, minor evolution, like adaptation. We humans, we all look different. Right. You got this beautiful beard right now. We're different. We're different We're different builds. Heights, culturally. Darwin made his whole hypothesis based on birds on an island, that he saw these different finches and had different beaks. That's adaptation. That's minor change to your environment. But we've never seen one species go from one family to another. And evolution would require that over and over and over and over again, all these miracles that we don't have a single example of. Yeah. And so I think that's a big part. People get confused on the terms and they want to push back so hard on evolution. I'm talking macroevolution. Right. Changing from one kind to another has never been shown. It's not in the fossil record. We can't do it in a lab.
Yeah.
But little minor changes, that's what's so cool about God's design. He made us be able to respond subtle changes.
Yeah. Man, that's so good. I've been a new parent in the past couple of years. My daughter just turned 2 last month, or 2 months ago. And she's starting to imitate some of the words and some of the things that she sees on TV. And it's so important to know what she's watching and what she's able to grasp through some of those shows. And my wife and I are constantly looking at, okay, what shows and what movies is she able to watch in order to gain a healthy view of what's to come and what it is right now in our culture. So getting personal with you a little bit, can you share a personal example of how you've worked through some of those moments?
Well, I think, the earliest one was that I can remember would have been probably kind of late high school and then going into my college years. Yeah. And it was asking those questions that I felt like deserved an answer. Something as simple as like, well, why do we have male and female? I mean, like, why would evolution make its job harder and all of a sudden evolve a species that required both a male and a female? Because let's say you got the first monkey, but you only got the female one. Well, it dies out in one generation. Yeah. So why would it have recreated this amazing miracle over and over and over again? So just the genesis of the origin of sexes is one of those things that's like perplexing, because you see it throughout the animal kingdom. Right. So that was one that I really struggled with and didn't understand, and how all these different ecosystems would work together. And they'd say that science had the answer, but then the more and more I would look into it, it couldn't explain things to me like echolocation, migration, hibernation. How a mama, you talking about being a young parent, like how does a mama bear go in a cave for 6 months and then yet never go to the bathroom? It recycles every single thing so that it can generate, more healthy milk for its young. And while it's in there, you talk about working out, it does this like isometric tensing the entire time. So when it comes out, it's only lost 10% of its muscle strength in 6 months of sleeping. Like you and I, if we were in a coma for 6 weeks, man, we're not gonna be able to walk.
Yep.
But God, that's one of those, just another unique trait that God created that we have no explanation for. And we got, countless examples. And so when you have those unanswered questions and you step back and you see all these different traits or abilities that we have no answer for, to say that randomness created that, it's almost laughable to me. I mean, that'd be like me handing my computer over to your 2-year-old and being like, hey, just move a few things around, and I think I'm going to get a newer generation of this MacBook. No, that's not how it works. It takes a very intelligent mind to make an improvement on that existing platform, if you will.
She'll probably move things around, but just not in the way that you'd want that to move.
Yeah, random mutations are probably going to render that computer useless. It's probably not going to turn on. And their whole theory revolves around random mutations that then get selected somehow and pass through generations. Well, we know in human experience that mutations typically are really, really bad. Yeah. They typically lead to horrible disease or usually death. Yeah. And they don't lead to beauty. Butterflies and blue whales and you name it.
So there's like, I get everything that you're saying. There's a lot of people that are probably asking this question of like, okay, there's this tension of what you're saying, evolution, random mutations, but there's also this tension of religion and spirituality. How can we as Christians better embrace scientific inquiry without feeling threatened?
Well, I think one thing that's important to know is what the goal of evolutionists is, if you will. Charles Darwin was mad at God. I'm not going to say that generated his entire theory, but he had lost a child. He wrote his book Origin of Species in a moment when he was very angry at God. Evolution's a way to try to disprove a creator. Because if all of a sudden we're all randomly created just through billions and billions of years of random mutations and chance, then our lives have no ultimate meaning. If there is no God, there's no moral authority. Who says what's right and wrong? It's all opinion. And so I think it's important to understand what the goal of, especially the modern Darwinist is It's to try to disprove God and try to say that we don't really matter. Our lives don't matter. We can do whatever we want. And we all know there's nothing farther from the truth. So I think it's important to know that science is beautiful, and I think it keeps pointing to God, but there is a substantial amount of the scientific community that is trying to use science. They're twisting it to try to disprove God or the need for a creator. They want to be their own boss at the end of the day. They want to be able to live their own life with no moral absolute, no authority above them. And if you're randomly created, well, that does give you a free pass. You can do whatever you want, and that's not a road we want to go down on. That's kind of how we got Hitler. I mean, he was an evolutionist. He believed in the higher species, and he thought he was ultimately doing the world a favor by cleansing people that he didn't see fit in his worldview. And without God, you can get down those scary roads. And so science can be twisted and manipulated for some pretty evil causes. It's a beautiful thing. It's brought us a lot of amazing discoveries, but we got to know ultimately where our truth comes from, and that's the Bible. And it's been tested and proven over and over again in a beautiful way.
It is true. We live in a culture where we hear these phrases like "you do you," or "your truth is your truth and my truth is my truth," and what you believe is true for you and what I believe is true for me. And man, it's just so hard sometimes to live a life of faith and believing in Jesus and believing in our God. And I believe that's why there's some of these questions that come up. Some of these questions that people struggle with every single day. So looking at our future, we're always future thinking, and we want our next generation, our future generations, to be set up in a healthy way. So what kind of dialogue do you hope that future generations will have on these topics?
Well, I think I hope at least that they'll try to take it from a biblical worldview. Use that lens. We just got countless examples of the Bible holding up. Like to date, there's not a single archaeological discovery that disputes something in the Bible. Right. That's a pretty good track record. So maybe use that as your foundational document and understand that things were intelligently created by this amazing, loving creator who was spaceless, timeless, immaterial. That sounds a lot like God. And maybe just know that that's your starting point. Yeah. If you look at everything was randomly created, that slows down science. That slows down discoveries and cancer research. And I mean, you name the thing. If you think that everything was random, there's no purpose and there's no order. But when you take a step back and realize that God created this amazing universe, this amazing world, all the life that we see, and he did it in a very ordered, methodical way, then it's a lot easier to do science, lead to new discoveries, improve people's lives. But you got to have the right starting point. Right. If you're starting, like a journey for me, taking off. If I take off and right from the start, my compass is off a couple of degrees, and I don't have the right starting point, I'm not going to end up at the right destination. And that's a scary way to do business. Yeah.
Oh man. I have to ask you this one more question before we head towards wrapping this episode up. But if you could change one thing about how science and faith are taught in schools, what would it be?
I think at least they should do the merits of both and the pros and cons. For now, it's a one track. They teach only evolution. And when I say evolution, it's that macroevolution, what we talked about, that's been proven over and over to be false. I'm okay if you want to try to teach evolution. If you can find a few pros, I've got a lot more cons. I got a whole acronym, the night that we get to come together to kind of go through 8 of the biggest flaws that just stop it at 0. But if you want to at least teach them side by side, let people make their own decision. That's where I know there's this huge bias, because they won't let an intelligent design foot in the door. And that to me is like really heartbreaking, because we all know intelligence when we see it. You can look at, say, Mount Rainier. We just got back from Seattle this summer. That's a beautiful mountain.
Beautiful place.
Yeah, it's carved up. Yeah. It's beautiful. But there's no order to that. But then flash over to Mount Rushmore and you see these 4 unique faces carved.
Right.
You know that didn't just happen by chance. And I just want an honest start. I just want them to be able to teach the merits of creation, intelligent design, and then they can teach their evolution side by side and then let the kids come to their own decision. Yeah. But to keep holding it at bay and never letting it in the door when you know that's what is, reality and what we see, that to me is heartbreaking, and it's doing a huge disservice. That's why I'm a big fan of private school or homeschool, so we can kind of control that narrative a little more. But if not, if they're in public school, you got to be willing to have those conversations in the afternoon with your kids. Be willing to teach them how to spot the lies. It's almost like a game, Yeah. Because time is not the cure-all for everything. You can give me billions of years, and we're still not going to randomly evolve the first cell.
That's right.
Much less everything that we see. But.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for, just indulging me and asking you some of these questions and having this conversation with me. Listen, you've had a lot of information. We've just gone through some of the most craziest questions that people are asking, and we just dove right in. And so here's my challenge to you as you listen to this podcast. Don't just listen to information. Our desire is that through this information, you're able to hear God's voice, God answering some of those questions that you're asking. I think it's important to do that. So, thank you, Brandon, for being our guest today. Again, like Brandon said, he is going to be with us in person, September 25th, right here on our campus, on our Thomas Crossroads Campus, at our Young Adults God Answers Night. And it kicks off at 6 p.m. And we'll dive into more of this conversation about science, creation, and religion about 7 p.m. So, listen, mark your calendars and get here. It's going to be a great night, and we'd love for you to be a part of that. My encouragement to you as we close out this episode is to encourage you and say that your questions matter. Mm-hmm. Your faith journey matters. So keep asking those questions. Seek God and seek Him during these times, right? And here's why. God is big enough for both of those. And God is big enough for all of those. So keep leaning into that faith with God. So again, Brandon, thank you so much for being here on our Young and Adulting podcast today. And for those listening, we love you guys. We can't wait to see you here on September 25th. With that, we'll see you on the next one.